There we go. Now you guys can hear me. My name is Tucker Johnson, and this is Nimdzi Live, and I can't help but talk like this because of this music. This is just how I talk now, I think. Oh, you are experiencing Nimdzi Live, where we talk about the latest and the greatest in translation, localization, internationalization, culturalization, and all of that fun stuff that global companies need to delight their international customers, or at least not to piss them off too much. On this program, we like to invite guests who have fun and also have some value to share for our audience of globalization professionals. I'm always eager to provide a platform for those with a good story to tell or a good data set, and I think our guests today have both. So let us know out there in chat if there are any topics that you'd like covered or guests that we should reach out to for future episodes. If you are not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe to Nimdzi Insights on whatever platform you are on. We are coming to you live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and a bunch of other stuff this morning. So, with that, this music's bringing me down, so I'm going to kill it here. What do we got to get into? We got a few housekeeping items before we get into it today. I want to mute my phone here. Really quickly, a lot of changes happening right now. As you know, our friends over at Multilingual Magazine are putting out their 200th issue. And here, I just happen to have the issue with Jaap van der Meer, my guest today. And they're putting out the 200th issue next month. They're moving to monthly over there. So make sure that you're checking out Multilingual Magazine if you haven't already done so. Print copies are shipped all over the world. We have tens of thousands of subscribers in a bunch of countries all over the world. If you want more information, visit multilingual.com. And with that, let's get right into it today. We have about 36 people joining us on LinkedIn here today. I see people popping up in chat here. Hello, hello, hello. Let's get right into introducing our guests. We have on the platform here Mr. Jaap van der Meer, owner of Taus, and Amir Kamran from Taus as well. You know, I have an introduction written up here, and I don't even know why I did that because I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to ask you guys to introduce yourself here. I'm going to go off script. Jaap, I think you're somewhat of a known entity in the industry, but for those of us out there who haven't heard of you before, tell us about your history. What do you do? What does Taus do?
Well, I'm an industry visionary since the dawn of localization.
I think I have something written like that in the intro that I wrote for you. I was like, since the dawn of translation technology, Jaap van der Meer. But I'll let you do it.
More down to earth, I'm the director owner of Taus, Translation Automation User Society. For most people, probably known as a think tank, discussing innovation, automation in the translation industry. But today we'll be talking more about products and services all related to data. So we hope to be able to change that perception of Taus radically from today onwards, because we're really a data company. But anyway, I'm the founder and director of Taus.
Welcome. Thank you, Jaap. And Amir, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Tucker, for inviting us. My background is basically computer science, and then I did a specialization in natural language processing. I was working with a bunch of research projects in different universities, and then I became part of Taus since the last almost 5 years now. And as Jaap mentioned, that we are becoming a data company, and I was part of that evaluation from the think tank to the data company. And now I am actually overlooking all the NLP efforts that we are doing to make our product more robust and more reliable with the technology.
And NLP stands for what? For those of us, we have lots of different people in our audience. So
so
just dumb it down a little bit here, Sherlock.
Yeah, NLP means natural language processing. So what we are actually doing is we are trying to find out, or we are trying to use the technology that is already available, created by big giants, how we can use that in different scenarios where language is the basic problem, whether it's machine translation or any other thing. And Taus has a lot of data, so that's why we are a very crucial part of this whole cycle, because we provide data to many different companies to train their different models wherever the main problem is something to do with language. So I'm basically natural language processing expert.
Perfect. That was just what I was looking for. So that leads me quite nicely into this. I'll give the intro here. Today we are talking about data enhanced machine translation, or DEMT. And I'm curious, what is data enhanced machine translation? We're going to get into that today. Lots of, and for those of you, I'll put it down in the comments, and I'll bring the comments back up on chat here. Put it down in the comments if you have a practical use case, or if you have practical questions, because I think machine translation is one of those things that we talk a lot about. We hear a lot of presentations, we read a lot of articles about it, but as far as like practical implementation, practical questions, like how do I apply this in real life? How do I get started directly today? You've got these guys here at your beck and call. So make sure to put your questions down into the chat. So we'll jump right in here. In order to have a conversation about machine translation or data enhanced, I've got an imposter here. In order to have a conversation about machine translation, we need to talk about the history of machine translation before we can talk about what is this new machine translation. So Jaap, I know you've published a lot of stuff. We've got some beautiful infographics and stuff here. I can pull those up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of machine translation? How did we get to where we got today?
Wow. How much time do we have? No, I'll just do the bird's eye overview. The first experiments with machine translation date from 1954. They say, but for the long a grammar, you learn entries into a dictionary and put that together. And that was the idea originally, how we could teach computers to do translation. But since, the late 70s, 80s, there was a breakthrough with a statistical approach to machine translation. So ignore the rules, ignore the dictionaries, just feed the computers with data, previously translated segments, and it will learn from that automatically. And from there on, it started to move somewhat faster. The latest revolution, of course, is in neural machine translation, more AI in the mix. But these systems, statistical and neural, they obviously need a lot of data to be trained on. And that's the key here to the topic of our conversation today, a data-enhanced approach to machine translation. And yeah, today, as you said, everybody's kind of using machine translation one way or the other. It's moving very rapidly. The space is evolving very quickly. And we thought it was time for Taos to come out with a completely new, unique offering, a very data-centric approach to cracking this machine translation problem.
Thank you for that. And I can also give a plug here for those of you that haven't already done so. I think in issue 1, I have so many issues of multilingual here. But if you're a subscriber to Multilingual, print or digital, go over to multilingual.com and read all about the translation economics of the 2020s. And this is a really interesting article written by Jaap van der Meer about what we expect for the future of machine translation and all of that stuff. And sorry, I've got a distractor here. This is what happens when I do 7 a.m. podcasts. I got kids. Anyways, sorry, super distracted by these children pulling on me here. So go read Jaap's article. Amir, how does natural language processing come into this? And I want to get back to you, Jaap, on the training and the data training and data sets. I want to get back to all of that. But how does natural language processing come into this, Amir?
Yeah. So. Your question is how does it come into this, but actually it's all about natural language processing. So, computer works on algorithms, and when you are teaching some algorithm to do something, you have to provide the data. So basically, the computer has to understand how these example sentences, bilingual sentences, looks like, and then it takes those examples and learn how to translate from one word to another word, or one phrase from another phrase, or one sentence from another sentence. So basically, what we are doing in these algorithms is that we are providing data, and computer is trying to learn from that example how to translate. As Jaap mentioned, that there was a time when statistical machine translation was the go-to method, but now there is a lot of focus on neural machine translation, and which is completely different game, where you need a very high quality data set to train an engine, and then of course you need data in different languages, and then you need.
And that's good, because we had people in the chat asking about that. What is the difference between neural machine translation and MT? Karina Balbo, thank you for the question. I think other people have been asking about that as well. So maybe you can just elaborate a little bit more on that. Dumb it down for us Americans.
Yeah. So as Jaap mentioned, that in the very early stages, there used to be rules, and then there used to be dictionaries. And in dictionaries, you just write entries, what is this word, and how to translate this word into another language. When statistical machine translation becomes popular, what we are doing is basically we are trying to learn statistics behind the data. That, for example, if a word occurs in one language this many times, what are the chances that some of the translations occur on the target side? So if one word is a translation of another word, that means that both the chances of both to happen simultaneously is very high, and computer can learn that through the numbers. And that was statistical machine translation. So we were not just trying to learn words, but we were trying to learn what phrases occurs simultaneously in both languages. So the more data you provide, computer can learn better. And it can also produce translation that was not in the examples, because it can connect different words that was out of order, or in different sentences used. It can learn the context, and then it can produce new translations. But with neural machine translations, you are actually trying to simulate human brain. So you are actually trying to train neural models that looks like human brains, and then you are it's kind of a black box, because there is a lot of mathematical modeling in the background. But essentially, you are providing the data, and computer is trying to learn how to translate one sentence into another by learning all sort of different details in those sentences. You are using a lot of kind of mathematical models, and then you are trying to translate a sentence using this neural model. So from one side, a sentence goes in, and it converts it into vectors, and then it produces an output. And this is the magic in between, that how it actually learns from the data to translate one sentence to another. But it is very different from the statistical model, and it can give you much better results with not that much amount of data. You don't need a lot of data to train these kind of models, but it is very, very prone to errors. So if there is any problem in the data, it can show that errors very easily. While in the statistical machine translation, if there is some imperfection in the data, the statistics can rule that out, that okay, the chances of this error to happen is very unlikely, so just discard this one. So, but if you
so to summarize, with neural machine translation, the machines are starting to think for themselves. This is how Skynet was born.
Tucker, to put it a little bit in historical perspective, so Taos started in 2008. There you have it. Already collecting data. We had this foresight that data would become more and more important in our industry, and we developed this cloud-based repository platform for everybody in the industry to contribute data and share it with the industry at large. Perhaps in hindsight, we were a little bit too early, although it did get a lot of following in the early days of statistical MT, and we now have 25 billion words of legacy data in 600 plus language pairs. But in the recent couple of years, we started building another sort of layer on top of that, which we now refer to as the data marketplace. So it's a new incarnation of our platform, if you like, with a lot of the NLP stuff that Amir mentioned, is built into this platform, into the pipeline, like automatic cleaning, automatic domain classification, clustering of data, anonymization, and we automate all these steps, and that has all together contributed to where we're at today, launching this one-stop or one-click sort of customization service for MT engines. That is in essence the DEMT, and it's a bit of a play, of course, on the other acronym in the industry, post-editing machine translation. Because what we're discovering with this DEMT is that we can, with all this hard work that we put into the data preparation, we can generate or deliver quality that is similar to post-editing machine translation, except it's real time and it's much more economically much more attractive, much lower cost. We're cutting out the human in the loop completely. So that's the essence of this new offering, and also it's the way we're positioning it now. It's independent of machine translation engines. The first release is an integration with Amazon Translate, but we could equally do this with other MT platforms, and that's coming. We're working on other integrations as well, and very important too with this new service is constant monitoring of that impact of the data. So we provide benchmark reports to constantly show, and also to ourselves, like, do we really deliver on our promise? Is there a significant impact of the data? Is the quality level good enough for the use case?
Awesome. I am just going through the chat here. We got a question from Anna. How many and I know this is taking off on a tangent here, but in the world, when we're talking about machine translation, there's kind of multiple different conversations that we can have. We can talk about machine translation from the client perspective, from the LSP perspective, and from the translator perspective. How many translators out there in the world are using MT? Are they all using MT these days? Are non-MT translators a dying breed? What's the future of that? Whoever wants to take this one, whichever brave soul.
Does Nimdzi know?
I don't notice. I don't want to ask because
we're not a market research firm, but
yeah.
It's all anecdotal. I suppose nobody has the answer to that question, but from what we hear and see, again, anecdotally, probably the vast majority of professional translators are seeing all the time, every day, machine translation output that they are being asked to post-edit. It's part of the mix. It's either they get a match from a translation memory database, or they get, if there isn't a match or a fuzzy match, most likely there is a machine translated segment that they can post-edit. That's probably the reality for most people.
If I can add something as well. So basically not all languages are covered by the machine translation industry yet. So there is a lot of languages, especially in the Indian subcontinent or African languages, which does not have either completely a machine translation engine available, or the quality is not that good. And all those translators are still doing everything from the scratch. But of course, there are engines for major languages of the world that are doing very good job, and then you just need to change maybe a word or a character to make it right, and then everyone is using the MT there.
So that's interesting, Amir. I don't know if we talked about that before. Would that mean that in Africa they skip the whole part where translators use translation memories? They go straight into using machine translation in the near future once their languages are covered for, similar to what we've seen with telecoms, right? They skip the landlines, go straight into mobile phones.
Yeah, there's like a term. There's like a term for that. How like technology can skip technological generations in developing countries. What's the term for that? If anyone knows, put it in chat.
it's I can say it in Dutch, de wet van de remmende voorsprong. It was actually a Dutch historian, a Dutch historian, Jan Romein, who coined this term some 75 years ago. But I wouldn't know what the proper English translation is because it's a Dutch invention.
Well, we'll see what chat says here. So, Jaap, you'd mentioned, now there's a very nice blog. If you're interested in understanding what more about data enhanced machine translation, but you think I asked all the wrong questions today, worry not, because you can go over here to the Taos blog, and I'll put a link in the chat just in a second here for this, and you can read all about machine translation. But in this, Jaap, you mentioned that, and this is a quote, it says, "The next logical translation solution, therefore, is data-enhanced machine translation. This is the premium quality level of real-time translation, perhaps not as good as human translation quality or transcreation, but good enough for 90% of all use cases." And I want to ask you guys, what are these use cases, and how have these use cases been shifting over the years? We talked about how the technology has shifted when we looked at this, and Jaap, you gave us a nice little history. But machine translation, I always like to talk about the quality from two angles. One is, how is the technology improving? And two, how is society's expectations of machine translation changing? Are international users becoming more tolerant of imperfect translations if it means that they can get content in their local languages? What observations have you seen around these?
Well, yeah, I think you answered the question partly already. It's the ease of the technology that is changing human expectations and behavior. You've seen the same in the, well, we mentioned the mobile phone already. Younger generations, the way they communicate using their phones, they're not
around these
so concerned about the correctness in their text messages. But they're very happy with the ease of the communication and the fastness and it's the same. We talk about mobile phones versus landlines. That they are generally speaking better quality, but everybody is using the mobile phone and the video conferences as we're doing here. It's so easy to connect, and so we love it. We use it all the time. And you see a similar kind of evolution in translation. This machine translation, especially if we boost the quality with data and with post-editing as well, then it's good for most use cases indeed, But it's interesting, there was one quality fits all purposes of communication. That was the old way of doing translation or localization. That we see this differentiation now for this type of content, like support tickets, support information, customer support. Good enough is good enough, right? And as long as the receiver can go on with their work, and the problem is fixed, the question is answered. But if it's sort of marketing material, then you want to do it with a better style and better tuned in to the specific target group than just general localization for a locale. For a language may not be enough. You may even have to go personal. So that's where transcreation fits in. But if you look at it on a total scale of all content, that's a fraction. That's maybe 5% where you need to go for that high level of quality, where the human is definitely required. So that's kind of where we're heading, we think.
Thank you. Anything to add, Amir?
Yeah, I think I can give you a personal example. Like, I'm living in Netherlands, but I don't speak Dutch at all. So when I receive some letter, if it's a promotional material from a company, I can just go to Google and translate it. And that's enough for me. I don't really care whether there are mistakes or not. But when I receive a letter from a doctor or a text document, then I really have to be careful. When I'm using a machine translation, then I really need someone to make sure that everything is correct. So these are the use cases everywhere where you can rely on some errors, or you really want a clean translation with no errors. So you have to judge yourself whether your use case fits in that or not.
And so, thank you. Yeah. For different clients with different content types and different volumes out there, I want to talk about volumes and I want to talk about data. I told you I wanted to get back to data, right? One of the challenges that I've always seen, now I'm not a data guy. Like, you've been doing this for decades, Jaap, so I want to hear what you have to say about this. But in my perspective, one of the challenges that we've had for years in this industry is in order to train things, engines, machine learning, whatever, pick your tag word, you need a lot of data. You need a lot of data, and there's just not that much. There hasn't been a critical mass of data in the language services industry, and even if there were, people haven't wanted to share their data. I know that's been a big challenge over the years. Is like, there's been different initiatives, and Taos has been behind a lot of these, and where it's like, hey, let's all share our stuff so that we can train, and everybody wins. And in concept, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful vision. But I don't know. Has that happened? Like, and how does this help that? Does this require? I guess here's my question: does DEMT? Are you telling me that we're able to train engines with less data than we needed 5 years ago, or even 1 year ago, or 2 days, or do we still need a lot of data? And where does that come from?
Well, it depends on
and sorry, there's like 9 questions in there, right? This is why I need to script things out, but do your best.
We'll try to cover it all through different angles, and Amir will expand on what I'm going to say here. But in line with what he said earlier, it depends whether you are talking about doing some data, using data to improve the output of high resource languages. Then you can work with a lesser volume, but very specific to a domain and high quality data. As Amir was saying, this new generation of NeuroMT is a bit more sensitive to the quality of the data. So we, in the recent years, have invested heavily on improving the quality of all the data that we own and that we store in our data marketplace. When it concerns low resource languages like Indic languages, Middle Eastern languages, African languages, then you're kind of, in many cases, starting from scratch. So you need a lot of data, as you say, to get the baseline first in order before you start customizing for domains. So that is a big difference, first of all. But yeah, part of you started asking your question, like, you need a lot of data. Does Taos have a lot of data? And there's sort of not a strong history or tradition in our ecosystem of people sharing the data. Well, we've experienced sort of the opposite. We've collected over the past 10 years.
And like I say, I admit my ignorance here. I don't want to like say, oh, no one's done this. And you're like, well, actually, Taos has been doing this. So yeah, tell me what you've been doing.
Well, our first platform was in a reciprocal model. So we had a different business model at the time. Everybody could upload data and then earn credit to download other people's data. This was in the time of the
right. Yeah, I remember that.
Moses. Yep. Some people will remember that Moses open source engine. It was kind of this prediction. Some people made this prediction like, well, with that sort of going open source, everybody will become their own sort of MT trainer and MT owner because it doesn't cost anything. So the reciprocal model we felt was perfect for that because for the common good, everybody got access to more data. But with the new generation of MT engines, it's not the case anymore that everybody will, not likely that everybody will own their own MT infrastructure. It's too costly.
Right.
So it's not the same people who are interested in downloading data who have the possibility of uploading data. So we had to change the business model. So the data marketplace is a commercial model. We're inviting everybody who has data to upload data and offer it for sale so they can earn money out of the data.
And who does that? Companies, translators, who does that?
Translators, OSPs, but interestingly, we see also a lot of interest from publishers. So from kind of another industry, another vertical where there's a lot of language data content, and often also have a lot of content in multiple languages. So for the moment, we're primarily storing by text, source, target, and text, but we're expanding into speech, and we're also more and more collecting monolingual data because the engines can also benefit from training by monolingual data. So it's not just the vertical of the translation industry that is potentially uploading data to the data marketplace. It can come from many other, or definitely also from the publishing sector. But there is interest definitely from people in doing that. Yeah.
Google just announced, I was looking at this. Google just announced machine translation for like 200 languages or something like that. So, back in the day, it was machine translation was for figs in Russian and Chinese, right? It's like these days, machine translation is creeping into more and more languages as more and more languages presumably get data available. There becomes a critical mass or a significant corpus of data for those languages. How does DEMT, like, what affects, how do you have to shift your approach when going after these, quote unquote, long tail languages or languages of lesser diffusion for which there might not be enough data out there?
So TAUS also has what we call the Human Language Project Platform. It's a crowd workers platform. And we've created data in the last couple of years for around 25 what they call low resource languages, Middle Eastern languages, and Southeast Asian languages, Indic languages. We're starting now to add corpora for African languages, Nigerian languages. So yeah, sometimes we have to create data where there isn't enough on stock, so to say. So that's one way of getting more data. But then, of course, like the big tech companies have been doing so far, and how they acquired most of the data is through scraping the web, crawling web, and that's another area where TAUS is also quite good. We've been participating in EU projects, the Paracrawl project, that basically crawling the World Wide Web, storing everything
that sounds so sketchy. Is that kosher? Is that like, what are the implications of that? Where you just go out and crawl the web for bilingual data? Is like, do you have to get permission for that first, or you just go crazy?
Amir, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So some websites actually mention that you cannot crawl that in their settings.
Yeah, the things that you never read.
Right. Yeah, there is a file that's called robots.txt, and you have to read that, and then you can identify whether to crawl that or not. But we actually publish a white paper on who owns the data, and there we argued that at sentence level you cannot really say that this is my sentence. So if you are crawling data from the web and then randomizing it and distorting it that much that you cannot reproduce the article or reproduce the page, that means it is then good enough to be used. Because and then you also have to do, for example, anonymization. You can definitely not use the names, the entities, and different kind of things, but you can still use the structure of the sentence. You can use all the vocabulary, and then you can train based on that. So it's a sketchy line, but you can work around it with different algorithms and with different techniques. And then also there are a lot of websites which allow you to crawl, so you can easily crawl that, and that's also a lot of data. There is a lot of data in public domain, for example, coming out of European Commission, coming out of different governments. You can crawl that very easily.
Thanks for that little tangent there. I know it's not central to the theme here, but I'm looking at the clock here, guys, and I've got more questions from you, but we also got some questions from chat, so why don't we head on over there and see what people are talking about here. Thank you, everybody, for putting your questions, comments, conversation here. Oh, very important. It is called leapfrogging, according to Julia Pedro. Leapfrogging. What we were talking about, skipping in developing countries. Someone else says it's called the law of the handicap of a head start. I've never heard that
Oh
before.
yeah, handicap of the head start.
Oh,
Thank you.
is that the Dutch translation? Oh, handicap. That's it. Handicap of the head start.
Handicap of the head start. If you're too early in a certain sort of technology revolution, you may lag behind later because others skip that sort of interim phase, you know, and go straight into mobile telephony, for instance, skip the landlines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who remembers Tom from MySpace? Well, Tom's a rich man these days, so that's okay. All right, let's get into some questions here. Law of the handicap of the head start. I liked all these. I had them prepared, but not anymore. Hey, Solon. Solon says, for those who'd like to try out DEMT that Jaap just mentioned, take a look, and she put a link. So the link is in the chat. Everybody there, thank you for supporting Solon.
Sure.
Yeah, Lara Pontyukov. There are two types of MT engine, generic and customized. The customized is the one that learns from the training data, TMX files mostly. But how does the generic MT engine learn? Do we understand that question?
Yeah, somewhat. So maybe I can answer that. So actually, DEMT is actually about that. So what we are saying is that now there is a lot of data available in many languages, and you can train generic MT engines based on that. So you can put all that data which is coming from this web crawling, or coming from the news domain, or coming from the medical domain. You can just take all of that and train and retrain your engines, and that will create a very generic model that can be used in very generic situations. But what about customized domains? First of all, do we know what is a domain? Because in the past, when the usage of MT was minimal, then the domains, the classification of domains was also very clearly defined, that okay, this is healthcare, and maybe this is tourism, and this is financial. But now it's not about the top level domains. Now it's about that particular document which you are translating, and each document can have its own set of not rules but nuances that the user wants to translate into that particular style. So DEMT is all about that. So when you are trying to upload a document, we can take the document and we can apply what we call matching data, which is to select data that is relevant to the query that you're providing, and then take that data and customize the engine based on that, so that you can get very accurate results of translations according to that document. So that was the main idea. In the first launch, we are just using pre-created data sets that we are using for DEMT. But in the near future, we are also going to give this the whole pipeline where you can upload a document on the fly. You will select data that is more relevant to that document, and then you can customize the generic models that Amazon is providing, or any other MT provider can provide. And then on the fly, it will change the settings of the MT model to customize based on that data set that you provided, and then do the translation according to that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Let's I love this. Umi Ozaidin, and everyone knows my pronunciation's horrible. I'm just going to stop apologizing on these live streams. Umi Ozaidin, big does not mean consistent or clean. I love that, and I just think that needed called out, because I've been talking about, critical mass of data sets and how much volume do you need in order to be feasible. And that's a really good point, is just because you got a big data set doesn't mean it's a good data set.
Yeah.
Next, we have. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something? Did you have something to add to that?
No, I was going to say very true, very true.
Yeah.
The quality of the data is so crucial. That's what we're learning, and that's what we're constantly, benchmarking ourselves by. By, as I said, for every training we do, we evaluate: is there an impact on the quality of the machine translation output? So, and it's all going back to the quality of the data.
Yeah, and that's why we say always that you don't need more data, you need more high quality data. Yeah. And that's why in our marketplace, we have built in all these tools. So when a seller is selling the data, we apply all the cleaning and all the anonymization beforehand. Only then it can become part of the marketplace. So the cleaning is taken care of. And then if somebody is purchasing that data, that is ready to be used in a MT engine.
And just Tucker, if I may, to zoom a little further in on sort of where that fits in the sort of the general sort of supply here in the industry. The state of the art at the moment, probably in terms of machine translation, is this real-time adaptive MT. That's the sort of the smart stuff that LILT came out with first, and then translated and blends and Lingo, the German company. But it all depends.
That's funny. Someone in chat was just talking about that. Imal Gamshurik says whether you use Google or DeepL or whatever, the thing that really makes you faster, I'm presuming she's a translator, or he's a translator, sorry, is the MT automatically spitting out the right target term. So it's funny that you bring up LILT and adaptive MT and stuff like that.
No. But what I was going to say is that these, well, presumably is the state-of-the-art offering at the moment in the industry is still very dependent on the human in the loop.
Okay.
The MT engine doesn't learn unless there's a human correcting the output all the time. And so it's that interactive model that is sort of crucial to this real-time adaptive MT. And our offering, the DEMT, steps away from that. We say we don't need the human in the loop. We can deliver real-time, similar quality levels at much lower cost because we eliminate the human in the loop totally. And that is the breakthrough that we're talking about here.
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, because that means that the probably hundreds of thousands of companies out there in the world that today use generic machine translation and get frustrated again and again and again because there are some crucial or stupid errors and the output is kind of making their customers laugh about their translations. They now have an opportunity to step up to customized MT without going through all the hassle of where do I find the data, how do I set up this customization process, and so on. We make it very easy with DEMT. It's plug and play. We deliver the data, and they can choose a domain, a language pair, and they get the machine translation output practically real time. There is a bit of a delay, a couple of hours maybe, depending on which MT engine we use as the power behind this offering. But it's basically real time, and for most use cases, indeed, good enough quality, and better than the generic MT.
So what you're talking about here is essentially lowering the barrier to entry to start training your own engines, right? Yeah. So I think, like, let's sit here for a little while just on this, because I think this is huge, and I don't want this to go over. To me, this is like my one thing from this conversation that I can take away is like, hey, training your own custom MT engines isn't what it used to be, because I remember back in my day, we're going to charge you tens of thousands of dollars. We're going to run a pilot. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to gather all this. We're going to scrub your TMX files. We're going to blah, 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 blah. And now Taos is lowering the barrier to entry to training custom machine translation for anybody. So talk to me about that. Who are some of the customers? Well, I'm not going to ask for your customer list, but give me some of the the case studies of people that are using this or people that are implementing it or considering it. First of all, like, how do you do that? And if I'm out there and I want to talk to you guys, how do I get a hold of you? Who do I talk to? What questions do I ask? Essentially.
Good. Yeah. Well,
pitch to me. Pitch to me. Yeah.
Yes. The service is live on our platform, so anyone can just come to the Taos Data Marketplace and select one of the standard data sets that we have on offer now. So there's about a selection of 30 combinations of languages and domains, and they can choose one of them, drop a file in the box, and get a customized machine translation for that language pair and domain. That is for the average user, but if companies are interested in scaling this up to an enterprise-wide solution, then we're here to, of course, go deeper into the whole process of preparing all the right data for their needs, choosing the engine that they want to use, build and doing the integration. So we're there to definitely help the enterprise users as well to build an enterprise-wide solution based on this principle of data enhanced machine translation. Now, who are the customers? Again, the thousands of companies, tens of thousands of companies out there that use generic MT. There's so many customers on Google, on Microsoft, on Amazon, on all these platforms that use these generic MT engines every day, but the output is not good enough. So they can benefit from this by using the data enhanced machine translation, getting the data properly prepared, that's kind of the market as we define it, as we see it.
Thank you. And for those of you that are interested in finding out more, now that I know Solon's watching, I can stop stressing about putting links in the chat. I can just say, hey, Solon, can you please link to this page on your website, the case studies and success stories, if you kind of want a more practical use of how Taos helps companies around the world to optimize their language capabilities through data. Remember, Taos is a data company. I keep repeating that. You'll be proud of me, Jaap. I keep repeating that. Taos is a data company. Taos is a data company. And yes, you have a niche in the languages, but really, you're doing data at the middle of it.
Hey, Tucker, if I may add some perspective here.
Yeah.
You referred to this translation economics article in Multilingual.
Yeah.
And of course, there must be people in the audience today or later when they listen back to this saying, well, you're taking away the jobs in our industry.
That was the last comment I was going to read from.
Oh, really?
You can't go on a live stream and avoid it. So, Karina, do you want to get rid? I'm going to read it in mean voice, Karina. Do you want to get rid of translators? Where do you see? And then she forgot the rest of her comment. But yeah, you can imagine where that comment leads. So let's address this.
No, I think you have to put this in economic perspective. And that's really, I mean, it was in the title, the translation economics of the 2020s. It's just common sense, if you see this technology moving forward so quickly, you just have to look at the economic considerations. The cost of translation for most companies is too high. The time it takes to deliver translations to the end users. Look, today, everything is in a hurry. People don't want to go to the grocery store anymore. They want this 10 minutes supply to their front door of grocery stuff, and that's the same in translation. We need it real time. So it's just the economic reality that we live in. And that was the essence of this article. The technology is there, there's a shortage of supply, cost is high, then that's just where the market is moving. Does that mean that the profession of the translator is going away? I don't think so. We still, because the total volume of translation is growing, and as we said before, there's a differentiation in use cases. And even if today maybe 5 or 10% of the use cases require that human in the loop or that sort of transcreation level quality of the total volume of translation, that is still more than let's say the human translators population today can handle. Look, the jobs keep growing in our industry. What we're saying is, was that post-editing machine translation really a very intellectually rewarding kind of occupation? We compare it to the history of factory automation. First you had the assembly lines, and people were forced to stand at the assembly line, doing some stupid manual things on the products that were just going by on the assembly line. Only later, they came with the robots and eliminated the humans completely from the factory. That's the economic reality. That's happening with translation, but that doesn't mean that the very intellectually rewarding work of creating art, of translating a 17th century novel from Chinese into Dutch, will be taken over by computers. Not at all. That's the very rewarding new future of translators. Besides, the possibility of translators to say, look, I've got all this legacy data, all of these perfect translations I've done in the medical field covering viruses and corona in English, Arabic. I can now offer that on the Taos Data Marketplace, and I get not just one customer, as I do with traditional services, but I get 100 customers because my data is very much in demand. So we're creating a new market. We're creating a new future here for the translators in the world.
So what I hear from that is no, Taos isn't trying to take translators' jobs. Taos is trying to make translators' jobs more rewarding.
More rewarding, and we're just putting our finger on the economic realities here. And that's perhaps what is not clearly understood.
Yeah, you can't fight changing technology and the economic shifts that brings, and you know what I'm saying? I mean, you can fight
yeah,
it.
I mean, of course you can, and then that's a whole different debate. We could have a podcast about that.
I was going to say we're getting into waters here that are a little bit too deep, and we could just go for hours. So
we need to change the economic model, right? We need to get rid of this.
Is that the new thing? Per word pricing. So right now, quick answer: per word pricing here to stay, or will we see that shift in 5 years?
That's not part of our reality at the moment. We do copy what the MT providers do. We're charging per million characters. No,
I mean for the larger industry. I mean for the LSPs out there, because like you said, you're not doing that right now. So how long until that has an effect on the larger industry as a whole, and we stop thinking about per word and we start thinking about effort and hourly rates and all of that stuff, or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I think so. But again, it's not part of our offering, but I would say so. You know, an hourly rate is more makes more sense because of all the different kind of use cases, right? Not every translation is the same. So an hourly rate would be better.
Well, guys, we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
Are there any, because I know you have a hard stop, Jaap. We have 52. We've been hovering between 50 and 55 people in the live stream. Very engaged. Thanks for hanging out with us here today, guys. Any closing thoughts really quickly? Any questions I forgot to ask you guys? Jaap, Amir?
No, I would just say that, as Shilan mentioned, that you can go and read about DEMT on our website. You can try the service already. If you have any questions, just ask us. You're more than welcome. I think our emails are there in the links, or Shilan, you can post it in the chat.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, if you are interested in selling your data, you can also go to the data marketplace and check who else has been doing this, and then you can upload your data and set a price for your data, and it will be part of the offering of Taos.
Awesome. So it's like getting solar panels and selling your electricity back to the grid, right?
Yeah.
It's like stuff that you're already doing, but might as well make some passive income on that. So head on over to Taos and check that out, guys. Thank you very much, Jaap and Amir. I'm going to close this out here. Just stick around for 1 sec. So,
thank you, Tucker.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Ladies, gentlemen, this has been fun. Like I said, we've been hovering between 50, 55 folks on this call today. If you've enjoyed this Nimdzi Live experience, then, like I said, make sure to share it with somebody that you think could get some value out of it. The one thing that I did want to plug on this podcast that I forgot to do this morning because I had kids running into my office here was Multilingual does have a new podcast. So wherever you get your podcast, if you're on iTunes, Multilingual News, Multilingual Daily News. If you're on Spotify, search for Multilingual Daily News. If you're on Casto, I don't know. I'm not a podcast guy. I don't know what the different platforms is. The point is, go search for Multilingual Daily News. And what it is a audio version of all of the news that Multilingual Magazine, Multilingual News publishes every single day to multilingual.com. And if you're not subscribed to either our newsletter or the website or whatever, If you're a commuter, you like to listen to audio, go subscribe to the podcast. It's really awesome. It's read by our own multilingual folks over there. And with that, guys, my name is Tucker Johnson. It was, it is, and it will continue to be. I am the host of Nimdzi Live, and it has been my pleasure to join you today. I appreciate our guests, Jaap and Amir. I appreciate my colleagues here at Nimdzi Insights doing all of the hard work here so that I can go have fun and goof around on live streams like this. I appreciate everybody in our industry who fills out Nimdzi surveys and schedules. We've got the Nimdzi 100 survey coming out, guys. Marketing managers, CEOs, owners. Be on the lookout for that. Talk to Sarah Hickey. And finally, I appreciate you, the audience, everybody in chat who are joining us live today. I appreciate the dialogue and everybody who left comments and questions and especially criticisms. And I very much look forward to next time. Cheers.
Bye-bye.